Space Engineers is one of the most unique games ever made, with beautiful graphics and amazing gameplay mechanics, and is overall a great game. However, the game is not perfect, and there are several issues that you need to know about before you buy it. But the game takes place in space, and your primary goal is to then build structures, vehicles, and ships. The game will focus heavily on engineering, construction, and exploration, where you must use creative problem solving to design complex systems and machinery. The ultimate outcome of the game is whatever you decide to make it, whether you want to build a massive space station, create a fleet of spacecrafts, or survive on a desolate planet. The choice is completely yours. Now, in terms of the main gameplay, it is all about building, exploration, and survival. And when you first start out, you will have the most basic set of tools and a small spacecraft, or even a base. Your initial tasks will then be gathering resources. This could be ores from asteroids or even planets, and then use those resources to build essential components like power systems, thrusters, and storage containers. For example, you might begin by mining iron from an asteroid, then refining it into other materials, and then constructing a simple base with solar panels for power. But as you progress throughout the game, you can build even more complex structures, like a massive spaceship equipped with advanced navigation systems or fully automated mining rigs. So imagine you start on a completely barren planet with very limited resources. You must then gather materials to build a basic shelter and establish a power source. Once that is done, you could build a rover to explore the planet and find more resources. As you expand your base, you can construct more advanced vehicles like a small spacecraft that is capable of leaving that planet's atmosphere. But of course, in order to make it fly proper, you must consider many factors. This could be the thrust, the stability, and the cargo space, where each of those steps will require careful planning. And this construction system is a massive part of the game, as every block has a very specific function. So as you can probably imagine, this game offers a ton of replayability due to its sandbox nature, but also the endless possibilities for creation. And that brings me to my next point, the progression system. So as we already mentioned in the early game, you will focus on the basics, gathering resources and building a base. But as you then progress throughout the mid game and even end game, you will see a big focus shift, as you must build way more complex and even powerful systems. This will include large-scale space stations, massive starships, and a ton of automated machinery capable of mining and refining resources. So as you can see, the progression from small basic constructions to grand intricate designs will reflect a lot on your skill, but also your creativity. And this is where you can truly explore the open world, as they are enormous. Planets, moons, asteroid, and deep space, where you can travel freely between all of them and explore the entire universe at your own pace. The game even has procedural generation of planets and asteroids, ensure that there's always something new to discover. So exploration is a massive part of the game. So by exploring, you can find the most valuable resources that can be incredibly rare. It will also open up the possibility for expansion, where you can establish outposts on different planets or even build a massive space station. Now, let's dive deeper into the most unique and interesting feature of the game, and that is the realistic physics engine and the modular construction system. So unlike many other survival games, where building is quite often simplified, Space Engineers puts a massive focus on realism and engineering principles. Every structure and vehicle you build must adhere to the laws of physics. This will include rate distribution, structural integrity, and power efficiency, which are all crucial factors you need to consider when designing and constructing your creations. Then the modular construction system allows you to build the most complex machines, spaceships, and stations, block by block, using a big variety of components, where every block and detail must be exact, or your ship might veer off course and even spin out uncontrollably. This level of detail really requires you to think like an engineer, where you must plan out your design with precision to ensure that everything will work as intended. So now you might think to yourself that the game is super hard, and you wouldn't be too far off. And that brings me to my next point, the game difficulty. So while the game isn't exactly high octane, quick reactions or you die gameplay, it will be quite hard for new players, as the game has quite complex mechanics and systems. The game does not hold your hand at all, and basically all of your learning must be through trial and error. Now, while there are tutorials, they will only cover the most basics, leaving the most complex things for you to discover on your own. And while this can be incredibly challenging, it is also super rewarding once you get it right. So for new players, the initial learning curve can be quite steep, as even building the most simple spacecraft, which might seem straightforward, can be a nightmare, especially if you don't understand how to balance thrusters or manage power consumption. Your ship will crash a lot. But this trial and error approach is a massive part of the game, and it's what makes it truly enjoyable, where you must learn from your mistakes and refine your designs over time. and even the most experienced players will often face massive challenges. As the further you progress in the game, the more complex everything gets. So the game actually caters to both the casual and the more hardcore player, but for very different reasons. For the casual player, you could play primarily in the creative mode, where you can build without worrying about resources, damage, or even survival. And it's perfect for just learning and experimentation with designs and learning the mechanics. On the other hand, for the more hardcore player, the survival mode is amazing, where you must also manage your resources, environmental hazards, and even damage, providing a way more challenging but also immersive experience. But no matter what kind of player you are and what game mode you play on, you'll have something massive in common, and that is the trial and error approach. As no matter what, you must learn complex mechanics that will take time and a lot of patience. Now, let's talk about the graphics, the sound, and atmosphere. As you can tell, this game has really realistic and detailed graphics that further enhances the experience. The visual design has a focus on practical but also functional aspects of the machinery and space environments, where everything has a kind of solid but also industrial look, which is really great for making your constructions feel authentic and grounded in reality, which adds a ton to the overall immersion. Now, the sound design and music are quite minimalistic but highly effective. You'll have the ambient sounds like the hum of machinery or the complete quietness of space, really contributing to the overall atmosphere. Then you add the soundtrack on top of it that is very subtle and provides a good backdrop that complements the isolation and vastness of space but without being overwhelming. So together, the graphics, the sound, and music create a highly immersive atmosphere that really pulls you into the game universe. The very realistic visuals combined with the ambient audio makes the experience of building, exploring, and survival in space both really engaging but also believable. That being said, the game is not perfect, and there are several pros and cons that we must cover. The first pro has to be the creative freedom. The sheer variety of gameplay and a vast sandbox mode where you can build anything from small rovers to massive space stations makes the game truly unique and offers so much content. Then you have the modular construction system, allowing for endless experimentation and creativity. The next pro is the realistic physics and engineering. This game is highly detailed and with a very realistic physics engine that makes building and designing structures feel very authentic, where problem solving and experimentation is a massive part of the game. And the final pro is the diverse game modes. Since there's both creative but also survival mode, it makes the game cater to a wide range of players, where on creative mode, you can focus on building without the stress of resource management, survival, or having massive setbacks, where the survival mode will offer a way more challenging experience with resource gathering, environmental hazards, and much more. And now for the cons. The first con has to be the steep learning curve. This game will be quite difficult once you start, as the mechanics and systems can be very complex. The tutorial is also very basic, meaning you must learn a lot from trial and error or external guides. And the other con is the time commitment. Building and designing can be a very slow process. It requires careful planning and attention to detail, and it's definitely not a game you play for fast-paced action. But with all that being said, let's grade the game. And Space Engineers gets a massive 9 out of 10, and for several reasons. First, the very unique blend of realistic physics, the creative freedom, and the highly challenging gameplay. The game truly excels in providing a very detailed and immersive sandbox environment where you can build and design anything you want. Then you have the level of realism in the physics and engineering system that is very impressive, really adding to the process of constructing ships, stations, and vehicles, both rewarding, challenging, and also educational. However, there are several drawbacks. The steep learning curve can be a big barrier of entry for new players, where the trial and error approach of learning can be quite frustrating, as the game systems and mechanics can be quite complex. However, if you can really appreciate a game with crazy depth, complex problem solving, and a truly unique sandbox experience that rewards you for creativity, patience, and strategic thinking, then Space Engineers is simply a must buy for you, and it's absolutely worth your time and money. For more amazing games, click here.